That doesn't sound right, does it? Okay. My goodness. The babbling. I need to not waste this sunlight, for real. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be my March reading wrap up. March was kind of a slow reading month for me, I'll be honest. I read 3 books, but one of them was like paper thin, so I don't know, I was hoping to read more than I did, but it didn't quite shake out that way. I'll give more of a reading goals update towards the end of the video, but for now I'll just jump into the books that I read last month. So the first book I read last month was What a Time to Be Alone by Chidera Egharu, better known as The Slumflower. I don't actually have a physical copy of that book anymore because I got it from the library and somebody else had reserved it. What's a Time to Be Alone is basically, how do I describe it? It's kind of like a self-help book. So What a Time to Be Alone is split into 3 sections, you, them and us, and throughout it she basically explores why it's more than okay to be alone and why in fact being alone should be celebrated rather than sort of being in a relationship that's not fulfilling. My favourite part of the book actually was the inclusion of Igbo proverbs. So Chidera, like me, is Nigerian, but she's of Igbo heritage whereas I'm of Yoruba heritage. It was only a small insight, but it was nice to have a look into a little bit of Igbo culture through the sayings that they have. I've been a fan of Chidera since, I'm not sure what year exactly, but since she was in school, in uni, in her final year working on her final project. She went to, I think, the London College of Fashion. None of that is actually relevant to the video, but basically I've been following her for a long time. So when she came out with the book, I was really excited about it because I've seen a lot of the things that she said on social media and I've agreed with most of it. So seeing that she had a physical printed book was just, I was just really excited for her and quite happy for her, and I love the fact that she's a black Nigerian from London as well. With all of that being said though, the book as a whole just wasn't as powerful as I was hoping it would be. I don't want to say that I was disappointed, but what I hoped to get from the book wasn't what I actually got from it. I feel like it made really valid points but only really scratched the surface. I feel like certain things could have been expanded on a little bit more. I really like The Sunflower and I didn't dislike the book by any means. It's just it wasn't as hard hitting as I thought it would be. The advice that she gives in the book made sense and it's really Instagrammable, like it's really bright and colourful, but it just kind of felt like something was missing, like it lacked a certain depth. I already knew this, but reading the book really emphasised just how much self-love the Sunflower has, and it's clear in the way that she writes that that's what she wants for everyone who reads her book as well. She doesn't paint herself as a perfect person in her book or on social media, but as a person who has gone through and grown through a lot. And even though the book wasn't quite what I was hoping for, if you're someone who's been thinking about reading it, then I would suggest that you do still read it because you might get something from it that I didn't. And to be fair to her, this was her debut. I'm looking forward to seeing if her future work hits me differently. And actually I think another thing that affected the way I saw What a Time to Be Alone was the fact that I'd read Dear Ijewale by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie not long before. They're not exactly the same thing, but they're in the same vein. I honestly don't think I would have drawn a comparison between the two had I not read them so close together. They're different books, but they're similar in that they're ultimately trying to teach something. Both books are aimed at women and showing us how amazing and powerful and capable we are, but I feel like Dear Ijewale did it better and in fewer pages. But again, to be fair, Chimamanda is an established writer, whereas What a Time to Be Alone is a debut, so the comparison isn't entirely fair. Right, so the next book I read was Mockingjay, but I actually have it, so let me hold it up. The next book I read was Mockingjay by Susanna Collins, which was the 3rd and final part to the Hunger Games trilogy, and girl, listen, do you even know how long I've been reading this series? I was literally like 13, maybe 14 when I started this trilogy. It took me the better part of a decade to finish this series. Like, I took my sweet time, but we're here. I finished it. We're done. We made it. Anyway, for those who don't know, and I reckon there's only a few of you at this point, The Hunger Games is set in a dystopian world where a bunch of kids go into an arena and fight to the death. Basically, there were better descriptions out there if that didn't quite satisfy you. So being as this is the final part in a series, I'm going to try and talk about it without giving away any spoilery details. So as excited as I am to have finally finished this book, I have to say that ultimately I wasn't too jazzed about how it all ended. After everything the characters went through, and let me tell you, they really went through it, the way things drew to a conclusion was just kind of anticlimactic. Like, oh, really? That's what we get? That's how this ends? After 10 years, this is what I get? I mean, it didn't have to take 10 years. It took me 10 years. I'm sure it didn't take every other person who's read this 10 years. But like, still. I think because I waited so long, it hit me a little bit harder, you know? Okay, so there were a few things that, you know, rubbed me the wrong way. In my opinion, there were at least 2 unnecessary deaths. And I also didn't really like the way Katniss ended up with who she ended up with. I didn't necessarily have a problem with who she ended up with, just the way in which everything went down, you know? She finally ended up with either Peter or Gale, but she didn't really make a choice. It just kind of happened due to circumstance. It's like after all of that, she didn't even really make a decision. It just happened. Like I said, I wasn't too bothered about who she ended up with. Although, with that being said, I feel like I'm already changing my mind about that. But I wasn't too fussed because the whole time I was reading the book, I flip-flopped between wanting her to be with Gale to wanting her to be with Peter and then like back again. So that in itself wasn't too bothersome. Just the way it all came about wasn't my favourite. I also feel like a lot was going down in the book, but Katniss wasn't really in the centre of anything. She was more like on the periphery, and a lot of the things that happened, like, we'd hear about them after the fact. That in itself was a bit anticlimactic as well, because in the Hunger Games and in Catching Fire, we were more so in the thick of things, seeing them as they unfolded, whereas in Mockingjay, we just sort of got the update afterwards. And what we're working towards the whole time in Mockingjay, when we finally get there, we just get there and we're told it's happened, you know? A lot of the major things happen between chapters and we're just told how everything happened rather than shown, and that was, again, a bit disappointing. And Katniss as well kind of grated on me a little bit in this book. I loved her so much in the first and second book. Like, I was here for her. Granted, by the time we reached this point in the series, a lot has gone down. She's seen a lot, been through a lot, like, she's had a rough time. Her fighting spirit is just so absent in this book. Don't get me wrong, she had her moments where it seemed like, yes, I'm here, I'm not taking any prisoners, but then it didn't really last very long and she'd wake up in the hospital and she was back to square one, and it was just like, dude, those little glimmers of the old Katniss didn't really last very long. And I feel like this book, right, it's just over 450 pages. A lot of her time is just spent drugged up on morphling, recovering in the hospital, hiding in literal closets, and just like being absent from a lot of things. Like I said, yeah, she's been through it, she has been through it, but the thing about Katniss is that she was always able to come back from it and just like fight and, I don't know, tap into some part of her that was just unrelenting. The Katniss in Mockingjay and the Katniss in the Hunger Games were just worlds apart. A lot of time in Mockingjay was spent just sort of bringing Katniss back from the edge and reminding her who she is and what she's capable of. I guess because of her sort of being sidelined for a lot of it, we got to find out a little bit more about the other characters, like Finnick and Gale. Gale I really loved in Mockingjay, and also there was the introduction of a few new characters like Boggs, who I really liked. I practically flew through the first book. I think I read it in about a week, maybe just under or just over. This book I've been reading since January. It took me 3 months to get through it. Other things were happening, so I would put it down and get waylaid, but I didn't have the same sense of urgency to get this book finished as I did with Hunger Games. I sat up finishing the last 60 or 70 pages of the Hunger Games, like reading it way into the night, because I just had to know how things ended. But with this one, I just didn't feel the same. That is just so sad to me, because I loved the Hunger Games so much, and to not finish the series with the same energy that I started it with was just sad. But with all of that being said, I can't wait to watch Catching Fire, Mockingjay Part 1 and 2, finally, several years after the fact. I am interested to see how it all plays out on screen. If that review didn't make it clear enough, I would definitely say that Mockingjay was my least favourite book in the trilogy. Overall, I was just kind of left with a sense of disappointment, which I think was worsened by the fact that I'd waited so long to find out how everything ended. I definitely want to read the whole series again though, but with far less time between each book next time around. Oh, I didn't pick it up. It's downstairs. 1 second. Okay, right. The last book that I read in March was Sea Prayer by Khaled Hosseini. Sea Prayer was the shortest book that I read this month, and it's actually more of a poem than it is a book. Like, it's really, really short. Bear with, I'm out of breath. I just ran downstairs to get this book. Should have given myself a moment, but you know, the show must go on. It is packed with these beautiful illustrations, like that's one of them. Oops. I really tried to take my time with it. I think the temptation with a short book is to just fly through it, but with this one specifically, I didn't want to do that. This book is so short but so beautiful. It's definitely the kind of thing that is going to sit with me for a while after having read it. Sea Prayer is inspired by the little boy who I'm sure a lot of us have seen the picture of. His name was Alan Kurdi, and he was a Syrian refugee travelling from Syria to Greece with his family. He was travelling with both his parents and his brother, and only the dad survived, if I remember correctly. I'm sure a lot of us have seen that picture of him in a Turkish police officer's arms. I remember seeing it on the cover of the Metro like 4 years ago. It's a really haunting image that I can still see in my head now. Obviously a lot of Syrian refugees have lost their lives making a similar journey to Alan and his family. There's something about that picture of him on the beach that was just especially haunting. The kind of thing that just sits with you. I actually didn't know that the book was inspired by his story, but as I was reading it, he came to mind. And then when I reached the end of the book, I saw the dedication to him and thousands of others like him. So the paragraph at the end says, Sea Prayer was inspired by the story of Alan Kurdi, the 3-year-old Syrian refugee who drowned in the Mediterranean Sea trying to reach safety in Europe in September 2015. In the year after Alan's death, 4,176 others died or went missing attempting similar journeys. This book is dedicated to thousands of refugees who have perished at sea fleeing war and persecution. Sea Prayer is written in the form of a letter from a father to his son about what Syria was like before the war and all the unrest and why they're having to leave now. The father really only had 2 options and both were dangerous, like stay and take your chances or leave and try and start again somewhere else. But it's not quite as simple as just leaving. There's a really intense journey that they have to make to try and start again, and you can tell from reading the story that he clearly knows that it's a very dangerous journey that they might not even survive. But he is in a very difficult position because there's risk involved in either option, and ultimately he chose the option that could give them a chance at a better life. Even so, it's evident that that wasn't an easy decision to make because they're still in danger. They're just facing a different set of dangers and there are still no guarantees. We don't know how the story ends because it finishes just before they embark on that journey, but we do know in real life, obviously, not everybody who embarks on similar journeys reaches their destinations. It's so short, but it just hits you. It's so powerful because this is fiction, but it's based on real life. I read it fairly quickly. It's only about 50 pages, I think maybe less than, and there's not words on every single page. The illustrations take up most of the space. The illustrations themselves were beautiful and really help you to picture what life was like before all of the unrest. Here's another one of the images, like one of the markets. Sea Prayer provides like a glimpse of what it is that refugees are facing, not knowing what they're heading towards, just knowing that they can't stay where they are. I really love stories that stop and make you think, and I just know that Sea Prayer is one that's going to stay with me for a long time. It's one of my favourite books that I've read so far this year, and I highly recommend it, least of all because it takes no time at all to read. And with that, that's the end of this video. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoy. Oh, Nana, I forgot to give you a reading goals update. Currently, I'm doing alright at my goal of reading a little bit every other day. The goal was initially to read every day, but like I said in my reading goals video, sometimes, you know, things get in the way and it's not always possible for me to read every day, but I'm still managing to read every other day. What I need to do though is step up the amount that I'm reading, because reading every other day is like all well and good, but if I'm only reading a handful of pages, it's not really going to help me hit my goal of reading 52 books a year. And is probably also why I am 3 books behind currently. So yeah, that's currently my focus, to just, you know, step it up a little bit, read a bit more when I am reading. In March, I read a book by a Black author, What a Time to Be Alone, so that's a check there. I also read a book that I've been meaning to read for a super long time, which was Mockingjay, so another tick. I guess that's it for the update. I'm really looking forward to closing that gap this month, and hopefully I managed to get just a little bit ahead as well. Don't know if that's ambitious, but I'm putting it out there. So we'll see if I manage it in my April reading wrap up. Now we really have reached the end of this video, so thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please remember to like, comment and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. There should be a button somewhere around here for you to do so, as well as a few other suggestions for you to check out. So click here, here or over here. Like I always say, I don't just make book videos here, I also do fashion videos, hauls, reviews, that kind of thing. So if any of that interests you, remember to check out the suggestions on the screen. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye! Sounded a bit weird, didn't it? Okay, say it again.